Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Idiot Father Costs His Kid $100 or as much as $500 for Being a Moron. If you've read my previous posts, you'll know I usually have issues with the mother folks. This time, I'll give you in all the glory the biggest fool I ever had to deal with in my business of owning a comic store and selling from flea markets. The year was 1995 or 1996. Two kids, about 12 or 13, walked into my store and wanted to buy a pack of Upper Deck SPX basketball. For those of you who do not know, there was one card per pack, and it was a hologram card except for some inserts. The kid paid $5, and he selected a pack and opened it. It didn't look like a regular card, and we were confused about what it may be. I asked to see it and saw that it was an Anthony Hardaway rookie autograph redemption card. To get it, you had to mail this into Upper Deck, and they sent you an autographed card. The kid asked what the value was, and I pulled out my Beckett's price guide and looked it up. No online sites then. According to the guide, it had a value of $500. Needless to say, this kid was jumping up and down with joy, and his friend was excited too. Enter Idiot Father. Idiot Father saw his happy kid and looked annoyed. He asked what was going on. The kid told him he got a $500 card. I confirmed this, and he asked how much he paid for the pack. When the kid told him, he got mad that he wasted $5 on a goddamn pack of cards. I told the kid what had to be done to get the card, and Father was upset that he had to mail something. His reasoning was that they would know where he lived. I told him that this was normal, and it was just to send his son the card. Nope, not having it. I said to him, tell you what, I'll mail it for you and your address will not be known by Upper Deck. I'll give you a receipt, and I'll give you a call when it comes in. He didn't want to do that because I'd have his number. I said, sir, I don't want to hang with you. All I want is for your son to get his card. I then said that I'll give you the receipt for the card and you can come in and pick it up in about 30 days as I would mail it out tomorrow. Nope. I would just tell him that I never got it and sell it and rip him off. I said, okay. How about I give you $100 for it right now and you don't have to do anything? Nope. It was worth $500 and I was ripping him off. He then told the kid that he wasn't smart enough to buy anything because he was being robbed and was an idiot for not realizing it. I tried one last time. I showed him the expiration date, which was in about 2 months, and said that since he had no interest in mailing it in or selling it, he would not be getting anything for it as it would become worthless after that date. Well, he dragged the kid out while insulting the kid and myself, leaving his friend behind to fend for himself. Several months go by, and I never heard if the kid got the card or not. One day I decided to go to the supermarket in the strip mall I was located in and saw the kid with his mother. I asked him if he ever got the card, and he said no. His mother asked, what card? And the kid said nothing. She asked again, and he muttered that he got a good card, and his father wouldn't let him send away for it. He told her what it was worth, and that I offered to buy it, and she got pissed. A few seconds later, here comes Idiot Father, and he sees me talking to them. She asks him about the card, and he started stammering that I was trying to rip them off and tried to get their address, and that the whole thing was a scam. The look in her eyes could melt the polar caps. She said, I work 3 jobs, and you sit on your ass all day and you turn down an easy $100 because you're so effing paranoid that you refuse to believe anything. She asked her son what happened to the card, and the kid told her that the moron ripped it up and threw it out the window of the car. She turns to him and tells him he's walking home because she didn't want to be in the same car with him. Found out it was a 7-mile walk. It was December. I don't know what happened after that, as the kid's friend told me they moved soon after. In my opinion, this story is a great example of how an adult's actions can have negative consequences for a child. It's sad to think that the kid missed out on a potentially valuable card because of his father's paranoia and refusal to follow through with a simple process. It's also heartening to see the mother standing up for her child and taking action against the father's behavior. Overall, it's an interesting and thought-provoking story about the importance of following through on opportunities and not letting fear or mistrust get in the way. The next story is titled, Criminal Karen Tows Unmarked Police Car After They Block Her Property. As a resident of a rural area in the Czech Republic, I had always been accustomed to the peace and quiet that came with living in such an area. However, my peaceful existence was disrupted when a couple, whom I will refer to as Karen and her boyfriend, moved in next door. They were the complete opposite of what one would expect from someone living in the countryside, and it wasn't long before I realized they were up to no good. Karen and her boyfriend were notorious for their loud music, constant screaming, and general disregard for the appearance of their property. It was a total mess. and it wasn't long before it started to attract all sorts of animals. The smell that emanated from their yard was simply unbearable, and I had to keep my windows shut at all times to avoid the stench. I had always tried to keep to myself and avoid confrontations with my neighbors, but Karen made it almost impossible. She had a bad attitude and would always try to start fights with me for no reason. I tried to talk to her on several occasions, but it always ended with her threatening me or throwing garbage at me. One day, as I was returning home from a walk, I noticed several people entering Karen's house, and I realized they were there to buy drugs. I knew it was time to do something about it, but I was hesitant because I knew that Karen and her boyfriend were dangerous. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore, and I decided to call the police. I informed them that my neighbors were cooking and selling meth, and they promised to send someone over as soon as possible. It was a rural area, so it took a while before the police showed up. When the police finally arrived, they parked their unmarked car in front of Karen's house, and that's when things started to get ugly. Karen flew into a rage and threatened to tow the police car because it was blocking her property. She called a tow truck, and when it arrived, the police officers rushed out to stop the driver from towing the car away. The driver argued that he had been called to tow an illegal vehicle, but the police officers quickly showed him their badges and informed him that the car was parked legally. They warned him that if he didn't put the car down immediately, they would arrest him for obstructing a police investigation. Karen continued to rant and rave, and it was clear that she was high on drugs. The police arrested her, and when they entered the house, they discovered a meth cooking operation, illegal weapons, and a ton of drugs. Her boyfriend was also arrested, and it was discovered that he had been on probation for a previous arrest. In the end, Karen and her boyfriend were charged with multiple drug-related offenses and tax fraud. The property owner, who was not Karen, sued them for damages and the cost of cleaning up the property. It was a relief to have them gone, but it was also a sobering reminder that danger could be lurking in even the most peaceful of places. Update. In the years that followed, the community came together to try to prevent anything like this from happening again. The police increased their patrols in the area, and the residents became more vigilant about reporting any suspicious activity. I heard that Karen and her boyfriend were sentenced to a lengthy prison term and would be behind bars for a long time. I also heard that the property was sold to a family who had plans to turn it into a community garden, which was a positive step towards healing and creating a safer environment for all. In my opinion, this story highlights the importance of being aware of one's surroundings and being willing to take action when necessary. It's alarming to think that dangerous criminal activity could be happening right next door without anyone knowing about it. The bravery of the protagonist in reporting Karen and her boyfriend's drug operation to the police is admirable. It's also satisfying to see justice served and the community coming together to prevent anything like this from happening again. Overall, it's a gripping and eye-opening story that serves as a reminder to always stay vigilant. The next story is titled, Neighbors Think My Life Now Revolves Around Them. So, on today's episode of What the Duck from the Neighbors, I need to have them approve when I do things that make any sort of noise. My neighbor just rang my doorbell to tell me his wife said to stop hammering. I was dumbfounded. I just kinda stared and said, "Excuse me?" And he informed me that we would be unable to make any sort of noise for the next few months because of their baby. To which I laughed in his face and closed the door. And now his wife is screaming at my door and he is messaging me to please just do what his wife says. So, some background. My spouse bought this house in 2011. Both houses are single-family detached homes. Both lots are 1.5 lots, so there is 33 feet roughly between our houses compared to the 6 feet for the rest of the street. The neighbor's husband was already in his house. I moved in 8 years ago, shortly after I saw the neighbor for the first time, and it was someone I've known since I was 4. We went to school all the way through high school together. We are 40. 3 years ago, he met someone. She had, at the time, a 2-year-old girl. She would stay at his house, and I would constantly find the kid wandering the streets. They would just send her outside with no supervision, no toys, no fenced yard, and expect her to entertain herself. The child was, and still is, nothing but a brat. 2 years ago, she moved in with her daughter. I run a daycare, so my yard is full of fun toys. But we also have 3 other fenced-off areas, one for our pool in the summer, one for our dogs, and one for our hot tub. All have separate fences and self-closing gates, plus my external fence is 650. During 2020, when COVID hit bad, the kids were doing virtual schooling from home. She never actually did it. She would be ringing my doorbell in the middle of the day, asking me to open my yard for her. I would explain that she can't be here when I have daycare kids and my daughter will come out to play after supper. She went to their backyard, dragged patio furniture to my fence, and climbed in. Who knows how long she was actually in there. But she decided she was done, and then couldn't get out. The latch for my main gate is at the very top, so the babies can't open it when my back is turned. She started screaming. I ran out in a panic, took her home, explained what happened to Mom, and Mom gave me crap for just not allowing her to play. I face a $100K fine if she is caught on my property during daycare hours. I explained this. She still snapped and called me an idiot. I left it at that. Happened a handful more times. I started sending them daycare invoices. Still kept happening. I finally told them I would have to call the police next time, which I did. Except this time, Mom and Grandpa were both sitting outside on the stairs and watched her do it. Also, they never bothered to come help her open the gate when she started screaming. Police gave them crap and told them to stop, or Mom would be charged with child endangering. I now have proximity sensors at the top of my fence and get a notification if anything goes over my fence. It's gotten better as she has gotten older, so last summer we set up our above-ground pool. We just ordered a new pump system and heater. The pool was half filled. I had also just done up all my planters. I casually glanced at my security cameras and saw her by the pool. I headed out. The main gate was open as the neighborhood kids were running from yard to yard playing. She took it upon herself to go to the pool and take buckets of soil from my planters and dump it into the pool. There was $400 damage to my brand new $1,000 pump heater system that was up for less than 4 hours. I snapped and screamed at her to get out of my yard and not come back. She is not allowed in my yard at all unless me or my spouse is out there. Now to current time. They had a new baby last week, and me hammering in my basement is disturbing them in their house 33 away, and they expect me to wait until the fall to finish my project. So I'm currently sitting on my bench outside, enjoying a glass of water with my outdoor speakers playing metal while I mow the lawn, which is much louder than the little bit of hammering. I'll finish that tonight after dark. In my opinion, this story is a perfect example of why it's important to have good communication with your neighbors. It's unfortunate that the writer has to deal with such difficult neighbors who don't seem to understand boundaries, but it's clear that there were misunderstandings on both sides. I can see how frustrating it must be to have to constantly deal with someone else's child wandering into your yard, especially when it could potentially put you in legal trouble. At the same time, it's understandable that the neighbors would be sensitive to noise with a newborn in the house. It's a tough situation, but hopefully they can come to some kind of understanding and find a way to coexist peacefully. The next story is titled, I left a landlord and property management company at a loss because they tried to nickel and dime me. I know the title is bad, but hear me out. This happened a while ago after I relocated to a new city. I signed a new 1-year lease for a townhouse in the downtown core and really enjoyed where I lived. The townhouse was okay, but a little less nice than I anticipated during my showing. Caveat emptor, I suppose. The only other relevant background is that the lease said the security deposit would be used for the last month's rent and would not be held as a damage deposit. The year passed with very few problems. The water heater went out in the dead of winter, but I stayed in a hotel for 3 nights and offset that cost against the rent after verbally agreeing with the landlord to do so. At the end of the year, the landlord asked if I wanted to renew. I said yes. I was presented with a 1-year extension for the same rent. I signed it and sent it back. I waited about 2 weeks and hadn't received the landlord's signed version back, so I inquired with the management company. They said the landlord was mad because they didn't get rent on the first of the month most of the time. I asked what they were talking about because I always paid on or ahead of time, and they said that while I paid the management company on time, as required by the lease, the management company hadn't gotten it into the landlord's hands in time. I said that wasn't my problem per the lease, but the management company requested $100 more per month on the extension to make up for the inconvenience. They said they would send me a new lease reflecting the $100 increase, which they did. I immediately went out and found a condo in a similarly ideal location that was much nicer and rented for $75 a month less than my existing rent. I went through the background check with them and they sent me a lease to sign. Before signing the new lease, I sent a certified letter to the landlord and the management company of the old location saying my previous signature on the new lease, which had not yet been countersigned, was revoked and ineffective because of their counteroffer and no longer capable of acceptance. I then signed the new lease. At that point, I had about 10 days left on the existing lease. The management company and landlord called me freaking out because they wouldn't be able to find a new tenant in time and would lose revenue. I said, not my problem, hired a moving company, cleaned up the old place, and returned it to them in the same condition I received it. In my opinion, the story highlights the importance of carefully reading and understanding the terms of a lease agreement. It's frustrating to be nickel and dimed by a landlord or property management company, but it's equally important to stand up for one's rights as a tenant. The protagonist's decision to revoke their previous signature on the new lease and find a better deal elsewhere shows that sometimes it's necessary to take matters into one's own hands. However, leaving the old place in good condition and not causing unnecessary harm to the landlord or management company is also commendable. Overall, this story provides valuable lessons for anyone who is renting or looking to rent a property. The last story is titled, "A Man Misunderstood a Flight Attendant's Directions and Felt Entitled to a Free Premium Seat Because They Wouldn't Apologize for Lying to Him." This happened last night, and it was one of the most satisfying encounters I've ever had with someone who had a downright comical sense of entitlement. I took a flight from San Francisco to Boston that was in the afternoon after a full day of work. I had a $200 airline credit to use on just this one flight before I lost it at the end of the year, so I was debating between trying to drink through $200 of free booze over the 6-hour flight or upgrading my seat to the front row. In the end, I decided to go with the seat upgrade and picked the window seat in the absolute front row of the plane with a shameful amount of legroom and an empty middle seat. I never get upgrades, so this felt like quite the luxury to me. Turns out the rest of the plane was completely full, so I was feeling pretty good about this decision. However, I still had some work to do on my laptop and was disappointed that because there were no seats in front, I could not keep my backpack in front of me, and I realized I had to go fight the mob of people still boarding for some overhead bin space before they all filled up. There was a very nice businessman sitting in the aisle seat in my row who stood up to help me. This is relevant later. The overhead bins filled very quickly, at which point the flight attendant at the plane door started announcing, "Overhead bins are almost full, put your bags in the first one you see," to all the people still boarding the plane. Now here comes the last man to board the plane. He's probably about 6'3", and he runs in and kind of shoots the crap with one of the flight attendants for a few minutes, and I'm not paying too much attention besides hoping he's not going to take the middle seat and the fact that he is talking very loudly, and he seems to be a bit drunk. For the rest of the story, I will call this man Dirk, because I don't know what the male version of Karen is. Nobody is in any rush to start getting ready for takeoff, and we soon know why. The pilot gets on the loudspeaker and says that because of the weather in Boston, we need to wait here before we can take off. Now Dirk has stopped talking to the flight attendant and starts to walk down the aisle, sees our empty middle seat, and announces, "Cool, I'll take this first seat because it's empty." Throws his backpack down in the space in front of us and slams himself into the middle seat. Now, of course, I wouldn't have minded if someone had purchased the middle seat, but now I'm grumbling a bit internally thinking about how I spent my airline credit on this upgrade instead of booze while this guy is going to get the nice seat for free. And nobody immediately came up to him and asked him to move his backpack, so I'm also frustrated that I had to go put mine away and now his bag is in front of my feet. And finally, Dirk is being extremely loud and vocal. For example, when the pilot came on the loudspeaker again and said we would be waiting 45 minutes before takeoff, Dirk yelled out, "Man, this is some bullcrap!" Stuff like that over and over. So at this point, I haven't said anything to him, but I'm sitting there probably looking like this. It's been about 5 minutes already, not too long, but I'm starting to think they're just going to let this fly. Then comes one of the flight attendants and walks up to this guy and says, "Sir, can I please see your boarding pass?" The man laughs a bit and says he just showed it at the gate, and the flight attendant repeats that he would like to see it. So the man starts rummaging through his backpack and hands the attendant some crumpled up paper and then goes back to his phone. The flight attendant uncrumples it and now starts to look annoyed and goes, "Sir, you just handed me a receipt. Try again." The man starts belly laughing like, "Oh, my bad," and then pulls his boarding pass from his pocket. Of course, he is in 32B, and the flight attendant asks him to go to his assigned seat. Now they start to fight, with Dirk saying, "But the guy said to take the first available seat. Nobody is sitting here anyway." And the attendant repeating that he didn't know how he heard that, but people need to pay to upgrade to these seats, and he needs to go to his assigned seat now. Things started to get heated, and Dirk is full-on screaming now, saying, "Why did he say to take the first available seat then? Why was he lying?" The attendant is yelling back, "This isn't Southwest!" and the rest of the plane is silent and watching. Now at this point, I'm guessing Dirk misinterpreted the guy at the door, saying to throw your bags in the first available overhead bin, but I did not want to get involved and have this potentially drunk man next to me direct his anger at me. Edit. The flight attendant announcing this was being very clear about this being for bags as well, so I think Dirk was just making up excuses. At this point, there are 3 flight attendants in the aisle arguing with Dirk, who is still scream-repeating the same thing about being lied to over and over. They are saying he needs to move or get kicked off the plane, and Dirk is replying that of course he would rather make it home to Boston tonight than get kicked off, but he needs an explanation first as to why they lied to him. In comes a boss of a lady who wasn't taking any of Dirk's crap to join the argument. She interrupts Dirk and says, "Look, you have 2 options. Take your assigned seat or get off the plane. I don't care what you think you heard. I don't know why we are still having this conversation." Then, when Dirk would open his mouth to continue arguing, the lady would hold up her hand and yell, "Ah, ah, ah," like a mother silencing their toddler having a tantrum, and I am sitting there 6 inches away from the action watching this all go down like this. Dirk sits there in silence for a few moments, mouth open, looking at this lady, and then stays sitting in the seat and looks back at his phone and starts mumbling again in a low voice about being lied to. At this point, the 3 flight attendants walk away, and Dirk seems to think that he's won, but lo and behold, 1 minute later, security comes on the plane. Now seeing this, Dirk stands straight up and says, "Okay, I will go take my seat," and starts to walk down the aisle, but they stop him and remove him from the plane, and we didn't see him again. And me and the nice man sitting in the aisle seat ended up getting free drinks for the rest of the flight for our troubles. In my opinion, this story is both entertaining and frustrating at the same time. It's interesting to see how entitled some people can be, and it's satisfying to see that the airline staff didn't back down and let the passenger have his way. However, it's also frustrating to see how some people feel like they deserve things that they haven't paid for and then throw a tantrum when they don't get their way. Overall, it's a good reminder to always follow the rules and treat others with respect, especially when traveling. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.